All right, today we are diving into something that is honestly a total game changer, building a digital workforce. We're not just talking about simple automation anymore. No, we're talking about architecting entire teams of AI agents that can run your business processes from start to finish. Let's get into how this is becoming a real deal enterprise reality. And I want you to just pause and really think about that for a second. Seriously, what if your most critical, complicated, multi-step operations, the ones that span sales, finance, and customer service, what if they could just run on their own, intelligently, reliably? Sounds a bit like sci-fi, right? Well, it's happening, and it's happening fast. And this right here is the core idea we're digging into, the digital workforce. Now, here's the key thing to get. We are not talking about one giant know-it-all AI. We're talking about a cohesive team of specialized AI agents. Each one has its own specific job, and they all work together to manage a process from the very beginning to the very end. So, how do you actually build this team? Well, the whole architecture really leans on this brilliant separation of duties. Let's call it the brains and the brawn. So, on one side, you've got the brains of the operation. This is powered by something like Copilot Studio. This is the thinker. It's the part that does the autonomous problem solving and figures out what needs to be done and why. Then on the other side, you've got the brawn. This is where tools like Power Automate come in. This is your reliable doer. It executes the tasks with absolute precision. It integrates with your core systems like SAP or Salesforce, and it makes sure every single step is handled perfectly. It's all about the how. So how do the brains actually tell the brawn what to do? Well, the magic that connects them, the glue that holds it all together, is a capability called generative orchestration. This is really the secret sauce that makes this whole system so smart and autonomous. And this slide really breaks down that magic into simple steps. Let's walk through an agent's thought process. First, it starts with intent analysis. It has to understand the high-level goal. What are we trying to achieve here? Next, it does a resource evaluation, kind of like looking in its toolbox to see all the different automations and bits of knowledge it has access to. Then, the really cool part. Plan generation. It dynamically creates a brand new multi-step plan to get the job done. And finally, plan execution, where it actually runs that plan, calling the right tool at exactly the right time. See, it's not just following some rigid, pre-built workflow, it's creating one on the fly. Okay, so the theory is great, but let's make this real. Let's actually apply this concept to a process that is famously complex, one that pretty much every business on the planet has to deal with. Quote to cash. So what is quote to cash? Well, it's that whole journey from creating the first offer for a customer, getting it approved, managing the contract all the way through to fulfilling the order and, actually collecting the money. It is the perfect candidate for a digital workforce because it's so complex and it touches so many different departments. And this is where that team concept just shines. You don't build one giant quote to cash bot that tries to do everything. No way. Instead, you create a manager, a Q2O orchestrator agent that understands the big picture and then supervises a whole team of specialists. And here's the team. It's made up of these agents with really specific jobs. You've got one for pricing, another for just generating the quote document, an agent for approvals, one for contracts. You get the idea. Each one is an expert in its little piece of the puzzle, which makes the whole system super modular and a heck of a lot easier to manage. Okay, now let's see how this all clicks together. Check out this summary. For the offer and pricing stage, the pricing agent calls a specific Power Automate flow to calculate a really complex price. A little later, for the approval stage, a totally different agent kicks off an approval workflow. And then when it's time to get the contract signed, the contract management agent calls a connector for a tool like Adobe Sign. You can see how the manager delegates the task, and each specialist picks up the right tool for its specific job. It's an absolutely beautiful modular system. But what happens when things go wrong? Because they will. At enterprise scale, you can't just cross your fingers and hope for the best. That's why building a truly resilient system with rock-solid governance isn't just a nice-to-have, it's completely non-negotiable. And resilience isn't just one feature, it's a whole strategy with multiple layers of defense. Down at the tool level, your individual automations have things like automatic retries for temporary glitches. Up at the agent level, if the AI gets confused about what to do next, a fallback process, which is basically a predefined safety net, kicks in. And most importantly, for those really critical steps like approving a massive discount, the whole process pauses and loops in a human for approval. The machine knows when it needs some adult supervision. So handling errors is reactive, right? It's what you do after something breaks. But to really scale this, you have to be proactive. And that means you need a robust, multi-layered governance model built in from day one. And this is basically the playbook for doing enterprise AI governance right, and it's broken into 3 layers. The foundational layer is all about setting those hard security rules and boundaries, the non-negotiables. The operational layer is about monitoring the day-to-day stuff, performance, cost, reliability. And then you have the strategic layer. This is where a dedicated team, often called a center of excellence, guides the big picture and makes sure the digital workforce is actually delivering real long-term business value. Okay, so let's pull back and look at the even bigger picture. Where is all of this really heading? Well, we're moving towards something people are starting to call the agentic organization. So if you're thinking about starting this journey, here are the key takeaways, the big principles for success. First, always start with the end-to-end workflow, not just a cool idea for an agent. Second, build governance in from the very start. Don't wait for a disaster to force your hand. Third, you need to invest in AI behavior design. The skill of writing crystal clear instructions for your agents is absolutely crucial. And finally, think modular and reusable from the very beginning. And this quote, man, it just perfectly captures the destination. The future operating model will likely pivot from traditional hierarchical departments to small, agile, multidisciplinary human teams that act as supervisors for entire factories of specialized AI agents. The future isn't about replacing departments, it's about small teams of people supervising entire digital factories. Humans become the strategists, the problem solvers, the conductors of a digital orchestra. And if you're wondering whether the technology is really ready for all this, just look at this number. There are over 1,400 pre-built connectors available right now. That means these agents can already speak the language of your most critical business systems. The Brawn is ready to connect to pretty much anything you can throw at it. So look, the technology is here. The architectural patterns are getting clearer every day. The governance models exist, which really just leads us to one final crucial question for you to think about. Is your business ready to hire its first digital worker?